Good evening. So, as you notice, I'm wearing my hat, which from now on means I am reading from one of my short stories, because I know lots of you can't be asked to read the actual short stories I've written about the magical steampunk adventures of Jacob Sanders, who is not based on an idealised version of me in any way whatsoever. So I'm basically going to read it out chapter by chapter, kind of like Alex Day with Twilight, but with an actual book. So, here we go. Sanders, Sin and Success and Scene, Book 1. An Unfortunate Introduction. Chapter 1. As a general rule, running at people in a crowded room with a knife isn't the best way to complete a job, the gentleman was saying, grinning cheerily. He was a languid man in his middle-20s, and he seemed to dance through the room, moving with barely concealed energy. His name was Jacob Sanders, and he was the man that Alverstone had been sent to kill. His first name was Jackson, but dropped that early in his career. Alverstone had a classier ring to it, and the bronze plaque outside his office read, "Alverstone Services. Client killed for twice the price." It wasn't his client's health he was immediately worried about this precise moment in time, however. Sanders had stopped in the middle of the room and was tapping on the floor with his foot, his hands in his pockets. A line had appeared in his brow, a sign of thought perhaps, but that was soon gone, and that cheerful smile was back on his face. "I don't have any grudge towards you, of course," he said. "All this," he gestured lazily, apparently trying to encapsulate the barroom tussle, Alverstone's being knocked out, and his waking up in the function room in one movement. "All this is just business." That was hopeful. Alverstone, tense as much as a man had been paralysed by quite a potent magical spell, could. There was either the part where Sanders sent him merrily on his way to meet his client's dismay, or politely explained that while he did not blame him for this incident, he still had to die. Fortunately for Alverstone, it was the third option. A man in my position will always attract the need for services, but this is the third time this week I've seen people skulking around. I can normally look forward to a fortnight or so without having to wear my knife-proof waistcoat when I'm on the town, Sanders complained. "I'm interested in knowing why so many people want me dead. Can you explain?" He motioned, and Alverstone realised he had the ability to speak again. It took him a couple of tries to get anything out of his mouth other than vomit and phlegm, but he eventually found his voice. It's not different people," he explained, coughing. It's the same person. Those last two times, they were me. I was scouting you out, getting the measure of the mark." That only seemed to please Sanders. Clearly the idea of having only one mortal enemy was infinitely more cheering than the prospect of several. "Well, I can't fault you on your groundwork. I didn't recognise you at all. Just like the end part, it was lacking. Rather like that football match you followed me to, wouldn't you say?" Alverstone wasn't too sure. He'd spent the match crouched between the advertising hoardings and the security banners. He'd had to magic himself invisible to avoid detection. He'd heard jeers and moans, so he'd assumed the game had been rather dull. "I thought you didn't recognise me," he asked blearily. Sanders smiled again. "I didn't then, but now I know it was you. I do. I knew someone was there watching me, but I didn't get to catch a glimpse of your face. It was very exciting at the match, you see. 4-3 it ended up. I thought you said the end product was lacking." "It was. Shot to goals ratio was appalling." Alverstone was utterly at a loss. He expected to have been sent off or killed by now, but here he was chatting away about the football. He was about to raise this point when Sanders spoke again. "There can only be one killer willing to put that much effort into an assassination attempt in this town. Probably this country, actually. Mr. Alverstone, I assume." Alverstone nodded, but Sanders continued to not really cared as to whether there was an answer or not. "I've heard about you before, just to talk about town, but what I'm really interested in is who hired you. How were you approached?" This time he looked quietly over the assassin, and Alverstone explained how a smartly dressed woman with a bow tie had visited his office with an envelope and a request. She had an odd way of talking. Alverstone took her for an automaton. That was a sign his client was wealthy, and the job seemed simple enough. The woman had left no name and only an address, and indicated the client either did not want to negotiate and considered himself too busy to concern himself with those below him. Jacob listened to this intently, his hand stroking his chin. Finally he moved up again and went to lean against the wall, removing a fall of dark air from his eyes. Sorry, I didn't actually mean to Anyway, he began to move his muse to himself, as though Alverstone was not there. "That rules out the old boys that do it themselves. Might be Worthington, he's never trusted Steam since the accident. The only person who's rich enough to afford an automaton and arrogant enough to think he's above ordering his own killings is..." The man paused and continued. "Kornilov." "Kornilov?" Alverstone ejaculated. That's the Holmesian sense of interrupted. "Pissy little upstart. He's inherited his family's business. Think he's got his smarts for the benefits of you. Truth is, he's really a multiple homicide waiting to happen, with the low cunning of a recently dead horse." Despite the scathing nature of his words, Sanders' voice remained level. "Now, this little offer of yours I've heard about. Client killed for twice the price? Is that a real offer or a digital witticism?" Alverstone broke into a smile. "It's as real as any contract. Do you want me to find this Kornilov?" Jacob broke into an even wider smile. "Absolutely not. Not yet, anyway. How would you like a job, Mr. Alverstone? That was unexpected. Alvester had never had a fixed job. He was a consulting killer, a position he invented himself. He didn't like the idea of being tied down. What does it entail? I'm not really much of a secretary. I also want to stab people with the pens. You don't have to do anything you don't really do, apart from a sort of computing. What do you say? What don't you do anyway? What do all these criminals want you dead? Are you some kind of vigilante detective? He hadn't thought that Jacob Sanders' spark would get any wider, and indeed it shrunk. His eyes still shone with mischief, however. "Why, Mr. Alverstone," he began, "I'm not their worst enemy. I'm their biggest rival. Jacob Sanders, master criminal. Pleased to make your acquaintance." So, yeah. That was it. So, whenever you see Barnaby wearing the hat of reading justice, which kind of makes him look like a Puritan, but ho-hum, can't always get what we want, you'll know that I'm reading from my highly exciting, wonderful book. I hope you enjoyed that chapter, and there'll be many, many more, because, well, not that many chapters, but never mind, there'll be more chapters on here over time. Bye!